The Powerjouster, the most powerful weapon a Sentinel Knight can wield, the Valiant Weapon of Sentinel Knights, and one of the most powerful Valiant weapons in the game. Like, this weapon is no joke. And yet, it has one of the more over-the-top appearances for the Valiant weapons. There is a lot going on with this weapon. Like, a lot. There are a lot of components to it. It's not just a literal snake or a chainsaw. There is clearly several components that went into this weapon's creation, and today I'm going to break that down so that way we know just what is the lore, the concept behind the Powerjouster's overly flashy design, and if it makes sense. Let's get on into it. Let's work our way from the bottom of the Powerjouster all the way up to the tip. So, what is this first yellow knob-like Lego brick on the Powerjouster? Well, that'd be the Powerjouster's Vampplate. A Vampplate was a small circular plate on lances to prevent wielders' hands from sliding up the shaft upon impact in a jousting match or in heavy cavalry. Very practical. This also makes a certain amount of sense given the Powerjouster's offhand ability, where the wielder charges forward dealing 30 damage and knocking down any enemy that it strikes. So you could say that the Vampplate on the Powerjouster is to prevent the wielder's hands from sliding up the shaft while using their offhand ability. So, it makes a certain amount of sense. So, given the fact that the Powerjouster has a Vampplate and is called the Powerjouster, it is very obvious that this weapon, as a whole at least, is a lance. A pole weapon that was used in heavy cavalry and in the sport jousting back in medieval times. But if that's the case, then why is there an axe blade on the Powerjouster about halfway up? Well, as a matter of fact, there's a somewhat logical explanation for that. So why is there an axe blade on the Powerjouster? Well, back in medieval times, lancers, the cavalrymen that wielded lances, obviously, also wielded secondary weapons. One such weapon that was fairly common was an axe. So, since the Powerjouster is obviously a Valiant weapon, and Valiant weapons are obviously two-handed weapons, you cannot have a secondary weapon while wielding the Powerjouster. So, I think that they probably decided to put the axe blade on the Powerjouster to, have that little reference to the medieval time period lancers and their secondary weapons. Kinda neat, if you ask me. Next up, near the tippy top of the Powerjouster, is the Sentinel Blue Flag. Why is a flag on the Powerjouster? Well, the answer is actually really simple, and that is, it was fairly common for knights to bear their kingdom's flag into battle in cavalry, and even on their lances too. Not just on a separate flagpole, but they would also bear their flags on the lance shaft itself. So, since this is the Valiant Weapon of Sentinel Knights, and a lance at that, having the faction's flag does make a lot of sense. And that leaves us with just the tip of the Powerjouster left. This is clearly not your typical lance tip. Lance tips are usually much more smooth around the edges, but this is a little more pointed. Well, if we look at the Powerjouster's charge-up attack description, it is hurl the lance, dealing 12 damage to enemies in front of you, and it costs 8 imagination. Hurling the lance. You don't typically hurl lances, but a medieval time weapon that was used in cavalry that you do hurl would be a javelin, and the tip of the Powerjouster looks much more similar to that of a javelin than of a lance. So it's pretty safe to assume that the tip, at least, is based off a javelin. And that is all the different aspects of the Powerjouster. So what is it as a whole exactly? It is a lance with aspects from other knightly medieval cavalry weapons such as axes and javelins. Pretty neat combination of weapons for the Sentinel Knight's Valiant Weapon, at least in my opinion. If you liked this video, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn post notifications on, so that way you know the next time I upload a LEGO Universe discussion type video. Also, be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below on what Valiant Weapon I should break down the design of in the next video. Thank you all so much for tuning in and watching this video, and I will see you all at Nimbus Station.